Rule number one, the story will last 10 minutes, no more. So, you know, Bill's probably going to start this in a minute. I'll tell you when I'm going to start. He's got the shepherd's crook out. And number two, and this is particularly, you know, enthusiastic within the crowd here. We'll see how this goes. I might not use you or not, but this is time for your cameo, believe it or not. Since we're in a nautical thing, I was in the Merchant Marines for a couple of years and did a lot of treasure diving in the Caribbean and so forth. So, you know, a sea story is kind of like a fairy tale. We had talked about that earlier. We all know the difference, right? A fairy tale begins, now kids, once upon a time. And a sea story begins, now, this is no shit. So at some time during the story, it doesn't matter when, it could be a declarative sentence or just a standalone, it could be part of a paragraph. Those 5 words have to come up in the story, or else you get no style points at all, and you're out of the competition. And many, many people show up from generally Alaska and you know, the Northwest to tell these stories. I think it's about a $10,000 purse, so it's pretty interesting. And of course, rule number 3, no matter what the crowd reaction is while you're telling this story, and whether they're going to participate in their cameo or not, if it turns left, you just have to continue on. At no point during the story can you let the truth get in the way of a good story. Let's start with it. So with that, let's go back to December, shall we? December 21st to be exact. December 21st, 1941. Join me collectively, if you will. We're walking through these big, gigantic double doors. We walk into a huge auditorium. This is the Cleveland High School auditorium in Cleveland, Ohio. This is the regional finals are held there. Midwestern teams come and play all the time. There are 10 basketball courts side by side, plus a regular championship court in the middle. On the right, hundreds of young men in their late 20s and early 30s, early 20s and late teens, I should say. The Army line. This is 2 weeks after Pearl Harbor. On the left, the Navy line. Very similar composition. Well, my dad and his brother are in the Army line. Now, my dad, Phil, and his brother were raised in a German orphanage as little tiny kids. And then they were adopted by German foster parents. They lived on a farm in Ohio. And they had been spoken to in German as little kids, and also by their foster parents for most of their life. Well, that may not mean much to you, but if my dad had stayed in the Army line, he probably would have ended up in Germany as some kind of quasi-interpreter or in a grunt unit or something. Well, at 16, he joined 3 Seas Camp, Civilian Conservation Corps, and went through all the trade classes. And the way this worked, you could go through carpentry. If you pass that, you could go to plumbing. You could pass that. If you got onto electricity, welding. Then you got to go to the big leagues, heavy equipment. Everybody wanted to go there, but they couldn't get through the other classes. My dad went on to that. Some older guy in the Navy line sees him across the gymnasium, says, "Hey, Shuster, what the hell are you doing over there? Get over here. You're in the wrong line." My dad went over and talked to him. He says, "They're going to give us this brand new unit, and they're going to give us new equipment. It's called the Seabees in the Navy. And we get to go to the South Seas with the palm trees and sand and clear water. I'm going to go to Germany." Okay, great. So my dad stays there. So they trained at Great Lakes. That's what they did. Went out to the West Coast. They get on a giant troop carrier convoy. And their first engagement is with 1st Marines, 6th Battalion Seabees, Guadalcanal, August 1942. Okay, they get attacked, counterattack, they fight back. Typhoon kills 30,000 men on the island. Then they get to go to R&R because they've taken over the place. They built Henderson Field, bridges, runways, dams, as construction workers do. And him and his buddy go to a USO dance, very first night. So they're having a good time. They go to get punch, and on the other side of the table is my mom, Margaret, who's in the front row, and her good friend. And they're serving punch at a USO dance. These 2 guys, these hillbillies from the Midwest, they think, "Wow, listen to those accents." And a couple of dishy-looking teenagers. So they said, "Well, can we walk you home after the dance?" Well, my mom and her friends, well, these bloody Yanks, you've heard about them, you know, overpaid over sex and over here, you better be careful. So they said, okay, so.